What is this? Come this way. Whoa. Okay. What is this? Huh. Got a button here. Oh, it closes. Okay. That's a lot of pistons. I guess this is probably made of some redstone stuff. Oh, yeah, we got some redstone in here. Huh. Wonder how you build this. Thank you for bearing with my terrible acting there. I just want to quickly interrupt the video to say I would like to talk about the basics of these redstone components in this video, and I will not be covering any of these or QC. Without further ado, let's get started and take off the roof. This door has two main states, open and closed. Just like redstone dust, which if I place a lever down here, also has two states, on or off. So let me direct your attention to the redstone on this lighter gray stone blocks all around the door. That defines the state the door is in. This redstone block over here powers the dust, therefore telling the door to open up. Now, oh, okay, I guess I technically will be talking about the redstone blocks. Well, dust can connect in a cross. Redstone blocks will power any dust around it, or other redstone components for that matter, or dust above it, or even dust below it. This sticky piston pushes the redstone block next to this redstone actually powering it. Right now it's not. So I can power this piston separately. You see it pushes it, powers the dust. Now the door is closed. I can turn the lever off and the door opens. For this next point, I'm going to add a resource pack from Vanilla Tweaks and show you, well, why doesn't this ring of redstone go all the way around the back? And you might have noticed something, that is, if it's powered here, it gets darker as it goes further away. And you can see some numbers on here, and that's because redstone actually has 16 states, not just two. One for being off, but when it's on, it's in 15 different power levels, starting at 15 and going down every block it moves. So it has a range of 15 blocks in any direction. So it's not just one big loop because I can't quite reach all the way around. Okay, so what are we actually powering? Well, let's take a look at a piston first. If we have a block in front of a piston and I power it, well, it pushes the block. It moves the block from one place to another. Unpower the piston, it retracts, but this is just a normal piston. It'll just leave the block behind. If you want to pull the block back, you gotta use a sticky piston. Okay, well, what do we have here? We've got a lot of green, and yep, those are green too, so these are all sticky pistons. But what is this yellow and green stuff here? Well, if we take a look at this piston, it's pushing that just fine. We add a couple more blocks onto here, it'll push all those just fine. Make it a normal piston for no reason. Okay, and let's keep adding blocks. Oh, it stopped. Huh. Well, that's 3, 6, 9, 12 blocks. So if you just humor me a second, what if you just want to pull all these blocks back? Well, grab a sticky piston. Oh, we only took one. Well, that's where a slime block comes in. And a honey block, but stick on slime. So if we make this first block slime, nothing will happen. Well, that's because I accidentally tried to move the whole world, but we'll come back to that in a second. If we just have a line of slime blocks here, we got 12 slime blocks, they'll all move at the same time. This is because slime blocks like to stick to each other. And there's still the 12 block push limit as we found out earlier. So if I add a few blocks here, it can't move this structure anymore. But we can remove a few from the end. And now it can move this just fine. Slime will stick to normal blocks, but it won't stick to honey. Okay, so we're just going to do a little quiz here. So if we have this little structure here, will this be able to move? Yep, moves just fine. Now, if I add some blocks onto the slime, I've already shown that that works. But what happens if I add some blocks over here? Will that move it or not? Yes, it does, but it won't pull them back because there's nothing sticking to them. These blocks get moved because this block has to move. It needs to move forward, but there's stuff in the way, so it'll push that stuff in the way. So coming back down here, this slime block is sticking to this block, but it's also sticking to this block. If this sticky piston's trying to retract it, then that means this block is going to move over here. That means this block's in the way, and 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 infinite blocks are in the way. So I can kind of just prove that point if I remove a few blocks here, or just one. It'll slide all those blocks back and also grab this one block here. Now honey is like slime. It'll stick together. It'll also stick to other blocks. But I already mentioned it won't stick to slime. So that adds a cool little feature that you can stick these two together. And these are two separate structures. So you can reach push limit on each side. And you now have 24 push limit because you have two different pistons. So that's 6 on the bottom here. That's 12 right there, 6 on the bottom here, 6 on top. Now we got 12 on both sides, and it can push it just fine. Now just to reiterate, these two are not stuck to each other. This lever, like a redstone block, powers everything around it. So this piston's right next to it, it'll get powered. But a lever, also similar to a button, will power components around the solid block it's attached to. So not only does it power, when I turn this on, this lever not only powers blocks around this area, but it also powers the blocks around here. And so as you can see, if I just use a redstone block here, these are completely independent. But now let's go one step further in the quiz. And, or I should say, just ask another question. I have 2 blocks here. And I power them both at the same time. They both move fine. But what happens if I move just one? It moves just fine. But it did weird things when retracting. What just happened there? Well, we just move this back up. When it was right here, this honey block stuck to the solid block. So it retracted the solid block with it. Guess what? This slime block's in the way, this piston's in the way, so that gets retracted too. We don't want this to happen. This door uses 4 separate structures. There's a 2x2 a honey right here, 2x2 a slime right here, honey, slime. So this door has to stay in sync. So to these pistons, these are 4 separate structures. I went ahead and removed the pistons on this structure and broke the redstone here so you can just see this is one corner. Works completely fine on its own. This was a pain in testing because things could get out of sync, and if they get out of sync, like if I move this piston here, this doesn't extend, but now nothing retracts and it's all completely broken. It won't happen if you just use the door properly, but when building, that's annoying because this block sticks to things, this block stuck to that structure, and those stuck together. Yeah. Design pains. This door has to be split into 4 separate structures because even just the top of this structure, 4 for the floor and 4 for the sticky blocks pulling the floor, that's 8 times 2 would be 16. That's more than 12. And this also has to push blocks on the floor. These two doesn't technically need to, but I did, and it needs to move this piston along to here, and this piston moves a block, so it needs 4 separate chunks, and you can see that movement. This piston's moved 1 forward, and this piston moves from here over to. So I pulled out 1 corner here. Now the question is, how do you get redstone to power these pistons? Well, first you got to know the order and where you're going to power them from. So let's say this is this bottom corner right here. So the first thing we need to do is push it out and then push it up into the floor. Say this stone is the floor level. So push it once, push it again, and push it up. So now it's flush with the floor. Now to pull it back, unpower that, unpower this, takes that block along with it, and unpower this. So, a couple things to note. First of all, the door was here. So everything below that shouldn't be here. This is in the way. So if the piston's here, we need to power it from this side, not the bottom. And you probably noticed this block got moved. So we either need to power that from the side or the bottom. But it was actually over here. Oh, I forgot one basic. Terracotta. Glazed terracotta is one of those blocks that doesn't stick to slime or honey. Oh, I just did it again, didn't I? Yeah, I can't move the world, can I? This doesn't stick to slime or honey. That's why I made the walls out of it, because there's slime and honey sliding along the walls. But we don't want it to move the walls. So we're going to put that here to show how we can power that. And this first piston we can power from the side or the bottom here. So we got some options. So the first piston that should power is this one here. Now this block right here reminds me of something. We had a ring of redstone going around, and that's right in front of this piston. This redstone, just like a lever, when turned on, powers things through that solid block. So it'll power this piston. This is also a full solid block, so it powers this piston. But this is just a slab. It's not a full block. So this piston does not get powered. So up here we can add that. Cool. First one done. Now, the next one is we have to power this piston. Now keep in mind I said this is the bottom right corner, I guess, from that perspective, and so that means there's another one right here. And this one's also powered. So we have to power both of these 2 pistons now. That's the next thing. Well, We can't power this from the back, as we already said. That'll just destroy our redstone. It'll push it out of the way. So we got to power this one from the bottom. Now dust not only powers the block below it, but it also powers blocks it's pointing into. So if I power, and can receive power from those blocks. So if I power this lever, which through this full solid block powers this dust, it also transmits the power down and through these blocks. So this piston would move, this piston would move, this piston would move, all at the same time. So what if we put redstone dust right in the middle here? We need to power this piston. I'll look at the top. We need to power these two pistons. So dust in the middle powers these two blocks, which powers those pistons. Okay, so now we got to power this dust. How do we power dust later? Well, we finally get to the repeater. So the repeater adds delay. The one is a short amount of delay. As you click on it, it gains more delay, with max being the 4th position. We're going to use the 2nd position just because that's what you need for pistons. I might explain that more later. I don't know. So let's put some of this back in. We had a slab here. We had the redstone go down here. And the redstone comes around here and then down through this block, powers the repeater, which powers the block in front of it. Repeaters work in one line. They receive power from the back, push power to the front. Now, the other cool thing about repeaters is that redstone signal strength decays every block, but repeaters will set it back to 15. You can see it there, it's 15. Was 13, now it's 15. So now if I turn this off, ooh, that didn't quite work. So we were thinking about extension, but we also have to think about retraction, where these need to unpower first, then these need to unpower last. Well, how do we add some delay to these? We could like power this line again, but that gets into infinite power really quickly. It'll just lock itself on. To show what I mean, like we could add a 4-tick repeater here, which would turn off after the 2-tick one, but it's circling around, it's powering itself. So that's never going to turn off. So we don't want that. For now, we're just going to find a different way to power these pistons. Well, we can power them from below. And we can also put dust between them as well. And how can we power that dust? Well, we've got a block here. We know a repeater will power the block in front of it. So if we put our 4-tick repeater here, then we can put a block right here and power the dust. So repeater powers the block, and through that solid block powers the dust on the other side, which powers the 2 blocks on either side of that. So let's see what happens. Oh, and this repeater doesn't power back the line up here, so it will turn off. Ooh, he didn't retract. Well, if you look, this dust is pointing into that block. So instead of this one turning off, instead of this piston retracting with these with this piston, it retracted with these two because this dust powered it. One way to show that is we're just going to put pistons here, and you can see these three are connected. We don't want that. We want to redirect this dust so it's not pointed at this piston. So now we're coming into target blocks. What a target block will do is it acts exactly like a solid block. It was made so you could throw snowballs at it or any other projectile and it would send out a pulse of power. But it's useful because if I place it here, this dust is redirected into the target block. So it only now powers these two blocks. It doesn't affect these two because it's no longer pointed into it. So what we can do is put a target block under here. And now when we power this, we see these pistons went first, then the further back pistons. And now the further back pistons retracted first, then these close pistons retracted later. That's what we want. And so now I'm going to place these in. And so with all that fixed, we now have the full piston array on one side. What did I miss? This piston. So this piston was here, it retracted into it and pushed the block that was here over and broke the repeater. Let's put that back. Okay. So there we go. Now, what about this piston? Well, I said we needed to power this block, right? Well, we don't need care about this block anymore, so let's move this one over. And if we build a straight line here, this piston will extend too early because this block is powering that piston. This block would be powering the piston if it's here, and this block would be powering the piston in the final position. We don't want it to get powered in either of these two positions. We want it to wait until the piston arrives before it extends. So we don't want these to power. We can either make them slabs or we can move the block down. And I'm just going to remove those so they don't stick. And now this one will retract first, these 2 ticks later, and these 4 ticks later. Why 2 ticks? Well, if we look at these pistons over here, let's just look at a piston and a sticky piston pushing that. If you power the piston first, you can't push it. An extended piston becomes immovable. That also applies in retraction. If you unpower this piston first, it won't pull anything because the extended piston is not movable. So you got to unpower the front piston, then the one behind it. And there's a certain time for this pushing animation to occur. And the simple answer is 2 ticks. So now we need to come around to the other side and power this piston. So we're going to do a similar thing to that side and go down and up right there and connect it into this main wire. Now we're going to look at this. Quick note, why did this power? Well, this dust points into this block and powers that piston. But I added dust on here. Why? Well, partially for no reason, but if you look down here, we also need to power the bottom piston for this corner. And that is the end of our redstone line right here. So that's the end of our line, and that powers this piston. So now, to get the longest reach around this whole thing, this should be at level 1, the lowest power level, and we should power it not here, but far enough away so that this only reaches level 1. And so then this line can reach as far as it possibly can before it drops down to level 1. So you can count that, or you can just power this block, look at where it drops to level 1. Oh, that's this one, and we can power that. Now we can remove power over here. And this is now our main switch. Now for the other side, if we just mirror it directly over, we have honey here, and we put honey on this side, when the door closes, those will stick together. And that'll go over the push limit because they're now one object, and you can't open the door again. So we have to alternate slime and honey not only here, but also across the sides. This has to be slime, and this would be honey. So you can see slime, honey. So now let's work on powering these. I'm going to start with these pistons in the second position. Just like before, we have a redstone dust block here, second delay repeater, and dust on top of that. Now to power the back piston, we have a solid block here, solid block there. And let's try just doing the same thing as we had on the other side. If we do that, it'll look like this. We had a block down here. We had target block right here. So this line was flat. And we had a 4-tick delay repeater here to keep these back pistons extended so they retract last. And now we're also going to power this front piston and connect them in. So there you go. So that is all done. Finally, we get to preference changes, like where else you can power the door and how to make it look pretty. So, what do you need to power? Well, there is this repeater here from this block, so we'll mark that up here. This repeater here powers from this block, so we'll mark that up here. This piston powers from this block, mark that, same here. Nothing here. Then on this side, these two pistons, piston here, repeater, repeater, and the front two pistons. So now we can see on this side we have a little bit extra power. We can also connect this up. So there's extra power here. That means we can shift the lever over 2 blocks and that'll also work. And this door is an exact mirror, so same is true on the other side. But because of these repeaters here, it's not exactly the same on the other side, across that way. We can power the door at these two positions over here because we actually need, this extra bit of redstone to power this repeater. And here we can see this line ends right as it's powering the last piston. Now, what if you want to power the door from this corner? Well, we can take a look here. It seems like it worked. This piston's powered, but this piston did not get powered initially. It's only getting power from the repeater at the bottom through the target block. So let's take a look at that again using FreeCam. It'll retract fine, but the extension's late in that corner. By the way, the special block placing tricks and FreeCam is from the Tweakaroo mod. So if we are focusing on just this corner, then we don't need to worry about this connection here. And also, we can look at a different way to power this block. You can also use this dust pointing in that direction to power that block if we do it one lower. And it's connecting down here, and we don't want that. So you can place a solid block to separate that redstone. So now you see this dust here is pointing into that block and powering it. But there's now another issue. This repeater is powering itself. As I mentioned earlier, that's an issue. It will never turn off. So here's where another trick from slabs comes in handy. If I block this off, you can see this power level 13 doesn't travel down. So we can use that trick here, make this a slab and this a block. Notice the redstone signal can travel up the slab even though there is no visible connection. So now the repeater gives extra power or extra delay to these blocks and powers this, but it doesn't cycle back, so it will actually turn off. Now we can take a look at this. And something broke. This block, which was separating these two pieces of dust, got pulled back by the piston and broke this dust and slid back here. So let's look at how I did it down here. Right. This is not needed anymore. Because this repeater directly powers back through this block. We don't need the bottom block anymore. Now, how can we make this look a little bit more pretty? Well, you can start by adding a ring around the top to show the rest of the floor. And now we can look at the walls. Can't put any blocks here because those will stick to the slime and honey. So you can put non-sticky blocks there. If you put any blocks here, that cuts off the redstone. We don't want that. So we can't have any sticky full blocks there. So we'll start with this, do the other side, and take a look. That's a little better, but still have dust showing. So there's two options. You can roll with the dust and put a full wall in the back. So now that doesn't look too bad, but if a player falls at a bad angle, they could land here. So a lot of people like having a very smooth wall on the doors. So we can start by adding blocks here, which technically we could have had before. Okay. But how else can we power these pistons instead of redstone on top of the blocks? Well, we can use target blocks and power using the side. First of all, without a target block, this redstone dust is not pointing into that block, so it will not power it. The target block will redirect the dust into it, as I mentioned earlier. So now we can have this dust connect over here and use more non-sticky blocks to cover up the wall. Now there's one thing to note, is that the distance has increased. Here, let's say from this block right here, we count 1, 2, 3, 4 to power this from above. But going down, we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Coming out of block means this redstone now has to travel further. On this side, the dust has to travel 1, 2 blocks further because it has to go out and then go back in. Here we were at the limit earlier from this edge. So travel 1, 2 blocks. This is the main power source now. Since we also had a bunch of extra power on this side, we can probably shift it to here and be safe. So we can check 5, 4, 3, 2, that one reached. And on this side, it didn't quite reach. Never mind. So I need to move this dust from here and power this one. And that is exactly what we have below. Now those yellow blocks do stand out quite a lot. So for gray, you have some options like an upward facing dropper or a furnace, which could make this look a bit nicer. Remember to hold shift when you try and place a dropper. on another dropper so you don't open the inventory. That doesn't look too bad. And we have a nice solid wall trapdoor. Another option is the bottom of a white shulker box. Not too bad. And completely different color palette, we have white concrete and the top of a white shulker box. Doesn't look too bad. Or one of my favorites, spruce wood with barrels, the bottom of a barrel. Note that with all of these, you would also replace the floor of the trapdoor with that wood color. If you enjoyed this, stick around for part 2 to learn about the input system.